Hello and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to another video. Today we're doing my July reading wrap up. I'm sorry this video is so late. I've been traveling last month and I just can't do two things at once, so we're doing it now. In July, I read 7 books, 1 fantasy and 6 romances, and that's about my average that I generally read. I don't tend to read more than 2 books a week. I did, however, read 3 Lauren Asher books, which is weird for me. I started 2 new series by her and then continued a series that had already started. So I wouldn't say she's my favorite author, but I do like her writing and I do like her stories. So I will continue with the series that I've already purchased, and we'll continue with the series that's currently being published as well. So why don't we go ahead and get into it. The first book I read in July was Throttled by Lauren Asher, and this is her first book in the Dirty Air series, which is an F1 romance. This book follows Maya and Noah. Noah is a professional race car driver, and Maya is basically a vlogger, and her brother Santiago is also on Noah's racing team, and they are rivals. So Noah and Santiago are rivals because Santiago is still kind of new to the team. He's a new driver and he did something stupid on the track and they ended up in a crash, so they just kind of like became rivals because of that. And then Maya just graduated from college. She doesn't really know what she wants to do with her life, so she starts vlogging and following Santiago around the world essentially while he races and then vlogging it. This book was okay. I did enjoy reading it. I did like Maya's chapters a lot more than like Noah. I thought that some of the guys came off a little bit sleazy, but it did get better like throughout the book. Also, if you've seen Ellen's vlogs, she did read this entire series, I believe, and then she did say that it's not super accurate on the F1 terminology. I'm not really an F1 girly, so I don't really know if the terminology in here is correct, but she did mention that, so I did want to call that out, since she is probably more familiar with like what things should be called if she watches the races, and I don't, obviously. So that's something that I heard people say about it, but I still enjoyed it. I didn't love the characters as much. Maya was okay. Noah became more likable like throughout the book. In the beginning, he was not very likable. His teammates are not very likable. Now, this is a 4-book series, so I do hope that the guys become a lot more likable in the future books, but I just didn't love them that much in this book. There's some drama with family in there. I thought that was very interesting. They do have a lot of good tension in this book and some banter that I enjoyed. I did mostly enjoy this book. It wasn't like the best. It was kind of like middle of the road story-wise, but I did still enjoy it. It was a good time. I had fun reading it, and I will definitely be continuing this series. I'm hoping Santiago gets a book because he's like the most likable one of them all. So I'm hoping the next one is in his POV. Yeah, but I still had a good time and I rated this one 3 stars. The next book I read was Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas, and this is the 2nd book in the Throne of Glass series. This continues the story of Selena Sardathian. So far, I am really enjoying the series. I love Sarah J. Maas writing in this. It's a little bit more YA written, especially in the beginning, like this book and Throne of Glass, the first book. They're written a little bit more YA versus like, you know, compared to like Crescent City, that's a little bit more complicated. There still really isn't any romance in this one, but there is still a little bit of attraction between her and Dorian and Chaol, who's the captain of the guard, and Dorian is the crown prince, but it's still just kind of like attraction. It's not really romance yet, which is understandable because this is only the 2nd book of an 8-book series. Also, I don't think this is a spoiler, but like in the first book, she's like in a competition to win her freedom and she has to become the king's assassin, and then she obviously becomes the king's assassin. Otherwise, we wouldn't have an 8-book series. So in this book, this is like her completing the missions or assignments that the king sends her on as his assassin. So this is mostly what this is about. A lot of like adventures and her trying to kind of like figure out how she can win her freedom. I rated this one 4 stars. I still really enjoyed it. There's still not quite as much romance as I mentioned before, but there is potential for it, so I did really enjoy it. I love the writing style, I love the story, and I will be continuing with this series. The next one I read was kind of a highly anticipated read for this year because I did really enjoy this author's 2 previous books, and that is A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. The first book in this interconnected series is The Dead Romantics, and then the second one is The 7-Year Slip. I gave The Dead Romantics 4 stars and The 7-Year Slip 5 stars. That was a great book. Highly recommend it. I was kind of expecting this to be a 5-star read. It unfortunately disappointed just a little bit. This one wasn't quite as good as the other 2. I ended up rating this one 3.75 stars. So this book follows the main character, Elsie. She's a professor and she's part of like the smutty book club. And one of the characters from The Dead Romantics is also part of that book club. I didn't see any characters from The 7-Year Slip, but I could be wrong about that. I don't think they were mentioned in this book, but one of the characters, Benji from The Dead Romantics, was definitely mentioned in this, and he is part of her book club. So essentially what happens every year, her book club goes on like this getaway, and unfortunately this year, all the people keep canceling because their schedules don't line up. But Elsie really wants to go. She's been really stressed at work and she really needs this getaway. So she just decides to go on her own. She packs up her green Pinto, which is named Sweet Pea, which I thought was really cute. And she just drives to wherever it is that they were going to meet. I don't remember the name of the state, but it was like a cabin somewhere in the mountains. So on her way to the cabin, it starts to rain. Her maps stop to work and she's kind of lost. So she decides to like pull over. And she pulls into like this small town that she's not familiar with. It's named Unwritten. And she almost runs over a guy in the street. She didn't see him. So she decides that's it for tonight. I'm going to go into this bar, have something to eat, and take a break. So she goes into the bar. Little does she know, Anders comes into the bar as well, and he's the guy that, like, you know, she almost ran over. And apparently it's small town vibes, so everybody knows each other, and the bartender kind of basically strong arms him into letting her spend the night in like the loft above his bookstore because their one and only hotel is like not accepting guests right now. It's under construction. Also, I forgot to mention her car is actually broken down. At that point, it won't start. So she does that, she spends the night, and then the next morning, strange things are happening. She's realizing that everything in that town is like very, very familiar to her. And then she finally realizes that she's like in one of her favorite book series by, what was the author's name? Rachel Flowers? Rachel Flowers. And basically all the people from that town are like the characters from that series, and the town looks almost identical as like the town in the book. And she's like a little bit, okay, I guess I'm stuck here. And her cell phone still doesn't work and she doesn't really know what to do. I thought the writing here was really, really beautiful. It's very whimsical, very descriptive, a little bit slow paced, which is not typically what I enjoy reading because I like things to be a little bit more faster paced, but it was a little bit slow paced. However, I was in the mood for it at the moment that I was reading that, so keep that in mind if you do pick up this book. It's a little bit more slow paced, and if you like faster paced books, you might not enjoy it as much. The romance was okay, except I thought that it happened kind of a little bit too quickly, a little too insta-lovey, because she was only there for a week, and suddenly on day 2, they're like in love somehow. So I didn't really love that part. I did rate it down for that a little bit. And then the other part that I rated it down a little bit for was the fact that when she found out that she's actually in this like magical town, she didn't seem very fazed by it at all. And I feel like if I was in that situation, I'd be like freaking out a little bit more. I'd be questioning it a little bit more. And she just kind of like took it. She just took it as it is. I just didn't think that part was fleshed out very well, and I didn't think the romance was fleshed out very well. But besides that, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed the writing, I enjoyed the story, and I gave it a 3.75 stars. Okay, moving on. The next book I read was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and this was incredible. This was incredible. This was a 6-star read for me. I put my review as 6 stars, obviously 5 on Goodreads, but 6 stars for this book. I've never cried more during a book than I've cried during this book. It was incredible. It was emotional. It was so well written. The story was amazing, and I was very, very, very invested in all of these characters. This starts off with a Reddit that's posted by Justin, and it's titled like, Am I the Asshole? And that's where he kind of explains what his curse is. His curse is essentially that every time he dates a woman, she then moves on to the next guy who then becomes her soulmate and they get married. So he's like a good luck charm, essentially. The other main character, Emma, reads that Reddit and responds, and she's like, the same thing happens to me. He tells his friends recommend that they date each other to break the curse. So obviously he reaches out to her and like, you know, they communicate through text or whatever. And they agree to go into like this dating arrangement to break this curse. Emma and her best friend are traveling nurses, so they travel to like different locations for like a couple of months at a time, and then they help out at those hospitals that they work at. So Emma chooses the next destination to be Minnesota, where Justin is currently living, so that they can do their dating agreement, break the curse, and move on with their lives. There is a lot of mama drama in this book. There's a lot of trauma that both of these characters are dealing with. A lot of surprises. There's a little bit of tie back to the previous two books in the series. The first book in the series is Part of Your World. The second one is Yours Truly. I do recommend that you read the other books first. Part of Your World was a 5-star for me, and Yours Truly was a 4 or 4.5 or something like that. They're all really, really good. I love Abby Jimenez's writing, and she just has a way to like get you attached to these characters. Justin really reminds me of my husband a lot, and he's like very like acts of service, golden retriever. I just really, really love him. So yeah, I do really love these characters. I was very attached to them. I cried a lot during this book. It just affected me emotionally on a deeper level, and I think it's great. I think it was great writing. It's amazing. I understand why everybody loves this book now, and I'm so glad I read it. This is like my top read of the year. So 6 stars for Abby Jimenez. Moving on. The next one I read was another Lauren Asher one, and that's The Fine Print, which is the first book in her Dreamland Billionaire series. This one follows Rowan and Zara. Rowan is the billionaire. Obviously, he's in charge of the theme park that's called Dreamland. It's supposed to be kind of like Disneyland, and Zara works there, and she submits this like proposal where she kind of criticizes one of their most expensive rides. He then decides that he's going to promote her instead of firing her, and he has her like kind of like redo the whole thing, or like reimagine it, redevelop it, whatever. So that's basically like a dream job for her, and she decides to take it and go ahead and do it. It's obviously a grumpy sunshine. He's the grump, she's the sunshine. She's very positive. She's, you know, very happy all the time, and she always tries really, really hard at her job to make sure that it's really, really good. So as she's working, she's kind of a perfectionist. She's not really artistically inclined. So she's having a hard time doing a drawing of the ride, and Rowan puts her in contact with this other guy who could do the drawing for her. And this, it says this on the back of the book, but he texts her using an alias, and he's that guy. So he pretends to be somebody else essentially. And she starts to kind of like talk to the guy doing the drawings. She's also talking to Rowan in real life. She doesn't know it's the same guy. So that's kind of where the drama ensues. And I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the writing. I enjoyed the story. It was interesting. It kept my attention. And I gave this one 3 stars. Then I needed kind of like a quick, fluffy, short read, you know, something happy, something fun, and I picked up Done and Dusted by Lila Sage, and this was exactly that. This is a cowboy romance about the main character. Her name is Clementine. She goes by Emmy Ryder, and she's kind of like a barrel rider, or yeah, I think she competes in like barrel riding. And she gets knocked off her horse, then she kind of becomes afraid of getting back on, and she decides to take a break, go home, and kind of recover. The main love interest in this is Luke. He lives in the town. He's known her since she was a child. He owns a bar. He also does like horse riding lessons for kids. And as she's like living on the property, they kind of like chat and find out more about each other. He learns that she's having trouble with like the horse riding, so he decides to help her. And their romance kind of develops from there. It was really sweet. It was really romantic. There's not very much to it. And it was just like this wholesome romance that I just really, really loved. I also liked her best friend in this. She was really funny. I don't remember her name. What was her name? Teddy. Her name was Teddy. Teddy. She was hilarious. I loved Teddy. I loved Emmy. I love Brooks. The characters were great. There was literally nothing wrong with this book. It was good writing, it was fun, it was sweet, it was romantic, it was easy, it was fast, and I gave it 5 stars. If you're looking for a fluffy romance and you like cowboy romances, highly recommend you pick this up. There's another book in the series that's already out and a third one coming out soon as well, so I'll be picking that up soon. So that's done and dusted, and that was 5 stars. And then the final book that I read in July was this one, another Lauren Asher book, and this is Love Unwritten, which is the second book in the Lakefront Billionaire series. The first book was the interior designer, Dahlia, and the billionaire guy. This follows the cousin of the billionaire guy, whose name is Raphael. I think he's the cousin. I think they're cousins. And Ellie, who is his babysitter. He's a single dad. He's got a kid who's got unfortunately this degenerative eye disease. So eventually he's going to become blind. So he needs a lot of help. And he works a lot, so he hires the nanny to help. They also go on this trip to Hawaii to create as many visual memories for his son as they can. And in all honesty, it's actually kind of sad. I think that was a little bit too much in this book, and it didn't give me that happy feeling of the romance that I wanted to read. I felt almost guilty reading about them having a romance when this bad thing is happening to this kid. Even though the kid was generally happy, it's still this overarching sadness that I just could have gone without. So the story of this wasn't my favorite. The writing was okay. The characters were okay. They were pretty well fleshed out, but there was a little bit too much of the son in here. I do like single dad romances, but I felt like there was just too much of the son in this one, and it kind of took away from the romance part of it. It wasn't my favorite plot. It wasn't my favorite story, but the writing was okay. The characters were okay. And I ended up rating this one 3.25 stars. I will be continuing this series. I think there is still going to be another 1 or 2 books after this, but I do hope that they are shorter, because this is very, very long for what it was. It was actually too long in my opinion. It could have been 200 pages shorter, because there was just nothing going on during the center part of it, and I found myself being a little bit bored. It definitely could have been shorter, and yeah, I definitely didn't like it as much as the first book, but I still liked it okay. So 3.25 stars for Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher. And that concludes my July reading wrap up. There were a few books on my July TBR that I didn't end up getting to that I'm putting back on the TBR card, so I just wanted to let you know what those were. And that's Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, A Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, Wild Love by Elsie Silver, Summer Reading by Jen McKinney, and The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson. So these are going back on the TBR card. Unfortunately, I didn't get to them. I'm very disappointed about that, but I just didn't have enough time to read. So hopefully I will be getting to these soon. If you were looking forward to me reading these and getting a review on these, I will try to incorporate them into next month's reading. But for now, that concludes my July reading wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were. And also, as always, please like and subscribe. That would really help my new channel. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.